So our first speaker is Daniel Burnand, and Daniel is a partner in the law firm of Brian K. Leighton Paisner, where he advises on a broad range of commercial property matters, including landlord and tenant transactions, and the financing, acquisition, management, and disposal of real estate investments across the retail and office sectors. But now I will hand it over to Daniel to tell you in his terms what he does and to probably do much more exciting things than me. So over to you, Daniel. Thank you.
Hi, that's great. Thank you very much. Firstly, thank you for the promotion. I'm not partnered quite yet.
I said sorry.
So I'm an associate now, commercial real estate team. And I was just going to sort of share briefly kind of my pathway into law and probably share it through highlighting three sort of turns. And I think probably my story just shows that there is a winding path that you can take towards law, and probably just some lessons that I've learned along the way that may be of help. So I'm a career changer. I used to work in a different industry. I used to work in international offices, something very different. I didn't study law, so I actually had to go down the GDL route. And by the time I decided that I wanted to go into law, I was fortunate to have had three offers from different law firms. Since then, I've been at BCLP for 6 years. And in addition to the day job, so in addition to all of the commercial real estate law, I'm also a mentor outside and inside the firm. I do a lot of pro bono volunteering. I work on all the charity initiatives, and I'm also a trustee for the Outrunners charity, which is in East London, which tries to promote sort of social integration and aspiration for the young people living in that area. So probably starting off with the first turn. So I grew up in Hackney. I grew up in a council estate, and my primary school wasn't particularly good, but I was really fortunate enough to go to a state school, which was one of the best schools in London, and it was only because I had a very good teacher that we ended up trying to get into the school. And I think that was probably the first turn in my life. And I think going to that school taught me a lot of things which I found very helpful later on. So things like playing rugby. We played some very top schools, but coming from the background that we did, we'd be there listening to kind of Garage in our car while we had other friends listening to the Rolling Stones, and it really kind of taught me to sort of interact with people from very different backgrounds. Some of the, in my class, I was fortunate enough to be in the same class as Tony Blair's son, and me kind of coming from a council estate, sort of learning to sort of be in that space. I found was quite a leveler and a lesson that really I took into later life as well. I was fortunate. I had good A-level results, and I decided. I was fortunate. I had good GCSE results, but I didn't really have good A-level results, and sort of slacked off. And took a year out doing some travelling and deciding that anything that I would do after that, I was certainly gonna try and work a lot harder than I did for my A-levels. I think through my travels, not to be sort of cliched and all the rest of it, but I think I got outside of my London-centric bubble. I was just a young kid in London who really hadn't sort of broadened my horizons, and I think learning about what else is out there in the rest of the world sort of really put me in good stead sort of later in life. And then when I did get started, I decided I'd work really hard and decided that nothing really comes easy, as I'd sort of found in school years. And I think that probably leads up to the second term, because I came out of uni, I'd studied history. I did a master's in something called race and resistance. I was particularly passionate about colonialism, the world in a post-colonial state, and sort of a lot of segregation and injustice around the world. And I thought that I would go into something like documentary filmmaking to really sort of share with everybody kind of what I'd learned, or into grassroots politics. And going from sort of coming out empowered, feeling like I'd go into something like documentary film making, I went on my second turn. And that was when I'd sort of randomly been given an opportunity to go to Vietnam and just work there for 6 weeks. Those 6 weeks actually ended up turning into 4 years. I was really fortunate. I was working in Sydney for a I was working firstly in Ho Chi Minh for an architect and engineering firm, and with that firm, I ended up doing tons of stuff. You know, originally I was only meant to be helping them set up a training academy, and I'd be kind of going back to the UK and just basically be a go-between between them and UK academic institutions. But I ended up doing everything from marketing to sort of helping set up an independent training business. And I think that was the second point. You know, I didn't really have a clear idea. You know, I had no idea at that point that I'd ever want to go into law. But you know, I was hoovering up experience in understanding the concept of marketing, sales, branding, and that is another thing that kind of, you know, especially in my interview, but a lot later on, you know, I found it's actually quite helpful to have those kind of broader business skills. I left Vietnam because it was too good. I really enjoyed it, but I wanted to kind of get back to London. I knew that what I was doing, where I was doing it, wasn't really for me. And I started working with our commercial director and started, you know, getting exposure into law, which kind of sowed the seed, I think, of maybe returning back to the UK and doing something law orientated. And I think that's probably leads to the third turn. And that's when I decided to come back from Vietnam, leave the career that I was in, and still completely uncertain. You know, I thought I'd really love to go into something like law, but I also loved the built environment, and I wondered, you know, maybe become an engineer. So I ended up applying for both and getting into two institutions, one doing the GDL and another doing engineering, and having to choose sort of which way, and there really wasn't a lot in it. And I think I spent a lot of time trying to, you know, go through that sort of searching, what do I stand for, what am I passionate about, and ultimately I chose law. And I think it was fascinating kind of going through that selection process, the interview process, and trying to kind of find the type of law firm that I wanted to join. I'd already developed a passion for the built environment. I love buildings, I love architecture, I love great engineering. So I knew I wanted to find somewhere that was a law firm that reflected those kind of sectors, but also I wanted somewhere that had similar values to me. You know, I feel at the heart, I'm very passionate about social mobility, about diversity, inclusion, and finding somewhere that didn't just pay lip service to those values was something important to me. And interesting, because I don't necessarily think that would have been a selecting criteria when I just left uni, but certainly later in life, I felt that that was something important. And then also I wanted a kind of a law firm which would have enough variety that I could sort of try different areas. You know, you go in thinking that you're qualifying to a certain area, and sometimes you end up trying different things that you never sort of thought of before. And another selecting criteria was somewhere that I feel that would give me good training. You know, I didn't want to feel like I'd just be thrown in a cohort of many. And ultimately that's what led me to choose the law firm where I am now. I think I was lucky because in that interview, all of those twists and turns that I'd gone through came up in some way or another. And it was really kind of a conversation with the partners where I was able to draw on all of this experience that I had no idea when I was going through that experience that actually that would lead me to sort of support and substantiate why I wanted to be in law and why I would be a good fit for that particular firm. I think another lesson that I learned is, you know, it's not just finding somewhere that is going to be, they think you're a good fit. It's somewhere where you feel that you'll be a good fit too. And that sort of brings us up to where I am now. So I trained at BCLP. I worked with the Crown Estate when they asked me, having worked for them on several matters, they asked me to come on secondment with them. So that was a real kind of career high, working with such a large organization that again kind of places at the heart of it things like sort of social conscience. I also work with other developers who are seeking to push into the sustainable environmental sustainability space, and fortunately working with somebody who's worked developing London's most sustainable and healthy office tower. A lot of issues which, especially in sort of post-COVID world, are becoming more important to certain clients. That pretty much sort of wraps things up. I'm sure I'll have some questions that I can answer in a little bit more detail. But I think, you know, the main things that I've kind of drawn is to try not to overthink things, to try and see what's beyond the horizon. Make sure that you're giving yourself as much experience and touching base with as much opportunities that mean that later on, when you do find something else comes along, you're in good stead to take that opportunity. And also don't forget what you're passionate about. You know, I wouldn't say the law is the single most defining character of me. There's so many things I'm able to do sort of through the law and in my spare time. I think it's important to keep sight of that. And that's it from me. Thank you.